Good evening, and thank you so much for joining us on this week's edition of Ubuntu Lifestyle. Now, Ubuntu Lifestyle is a program that brings you a variety of guest presentations and everything just to check on how a certain set of people are living or what is happening in some showbiz. But this week, we are trying to delve into a very, very unfamiliar direction where we are highlighting something that is actually uh, bothering all of us socially. This is something to do with street kids in Zambia. Now, we're trying to find out exactly how we are looking at them, how we are dealing with this a particular issue. And remember, we are just trying to introduce this subject, and we shall have experts to deal with these subjects as soon as we get hold of them, and probably just bring some people who are experiencing the street life to the fore and explain to us or maybe share with us how they've been surviving. But this evening, I'm not alone. I'm joined by Chibonta, who is also here to share with us what he thinks about this subject. CJ, good evening, and thank you so much for joining me on Ubuntu Lifestyle this evening.
Good evening, Lawrence. It's a pleasure to be on Lifestyle, and it's quite an interesting, touchy, and a topic that is, I would say, something that people really need to pay attention to, and we hope uh, it's a situation that can be handled in a good. The issue of street kids is something that has been ongoing for a long time with different organizations coming on board and raising different concerns.
Okay, CJ, you haven't been on Ubuntu Lifestyle for quite a long time. Probably it's over a year now.
Yeah.
And it's interesting to have you back once again. This should be your home.
Yeah. Mostly,
All right.
mostly with other shows. Yeah. Eh? Keep us
Okay.
up and about.
All right. And remember the viewers, you are free to leave your comments on whatever social media platform you are watching us from, and we'll be glad to hear your views on this topical subject. Now, let's go into it, CJ. I think we are told street kids are poor or homeless children who live on the streets of a city, a town, or a village. Now, CJ, what
Yeah.
exactly what exactly do you think? Uh, where do you think the genesis of street kids came from? Actually,
Well, okay. Let me first of all make a disclaimer. I'm not an expert in this area, just like you
exactly,
had said,
exactly.
and so we'll be making this discussion generally on what is going on and what we are seeing. Now,
Yeah.
if you look at this issue of street kids, you find that some themselves on the streets due to the different situations or circumstances they have found themselves in. Others, it's voluntary. Others, it's involuntary. Okay, but you find these kids on the street. Others are orphaned. Others have parents and where they come from. Now, um, mostly with these kids loitering around, spending nights in the streets, sleeping in drainage and that kind of a thing, and you find it's a it's a it's a concern for society. It's a
Okay,
I
CJ,
would say
CJ, we seem to be having trouble with your network. We can't really hear you. I'll ask you to probably just reset your network so that we can be able to get you properly. If you can do
okay.
that. On the other side, um, it's interesting to note that the World Health Organization and UNICEF together have reported twice over the years to say we are looking at over 100 million children globally living on the street. Now, that's not a small number that we can actually just look over and forget about. But this is something that is real and shows you how grave this situation is. Let me welcome the guest in my studio. Good evening and welcome to Ubuntu Lifestyle.
Good evening, Rollins. And how are you?
I'm all right, Himba. Thank you so much for joining us this evening.
Thank you so much. And once more, may I please say good evening, viewers, as well.
Okay, Himba, just as you have observed, we are looking at the issue of street kids in Zambia. We are trying to share some ideas on what exactly is happening to do with street kids. And I think, as you can see on the slide on your right, Himba, it's quite amazing that we are looking at that number of street kids globally. What do you make of that?
This is a very worrying situation. And because the number is very high, and really, I think all the organization, especially the member countries of World Health Organization, they need to work on this number because I think the number is growing and it will still be growing if nothing is done. Because if you look, I'm going to concentrate very much on Zambia, where I know much and where I mean I've lived since childbirth, since I was born anyway. If you look at Zambia, we are having the number is growing every day because we've got two categories here. When we've got street kids and we've got kids on the street, and there are various reasons that puts them on the street or that makes them being found on the street. Some they are found on the streets due to divorce. Some they are found on the street because of a hostile environment where they are coming from. It may be their parents are still alive, both parents are still alive, but the environment at home is not child friendly. They leave home. Some they become peer headed. I mean, they have to source for a living. And then there are some who are born on the street. Like today we are calling them, like, let's talk about. There are people who born on the street, they've grown on the street. Now they are balaban. So which
Yeah,
means
yeah.
these children will be on the street. It's a chain reaction. They will be on the street. And this is why now where we need the government to come in. On this one, it's a very serious concern. It's a very serious situation where the government has to come in and arrest the situation. Because if you look at the children who run away from home, some it's peer pressure. Some it's just the age group, the age of where they feel they are independent, they can live on their own, they go on the street and because of company, they found themselves on the street. So there are many reasons that makes children to find themselves on the street. And this also affect the economy because these children are not sent to school. These children, they really don't have time to develop or to acquire skills. Hence, it will affect development in a country. However, this should be everyone's problem. Today we are calling them street kids. What are we going to call them tomorrow?
All right.
Thank you.
Um, 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 Let me encourage the viewers to just engage us on this subject. Please, we welcome your views as concerning this topic, and we will be very glad to hear from you if you also have an idea. Because what we are doing here is sharing ideas. None of us actually has the full knowledge of what exactly is happening. But Himba, I took some time today to find out exactly why globally we have this part. Not only Zambia, but we are looking at everywhere. By the way, by the way, in Africa, Kenya seems to be the country leading with in terms of numbers of street kids, and we are wondering why is it happening like that. Let me ask my producer to just give us the next slide so we can look at some of the issues that we are looking at. And the first factor that we found was economic. Himba, looks like when things are not okay at home, children tend to leave.
Yeah, true. When things are not okay at home, and especially where love is not there, children, they look for love in various ways. Some they'll go on the street because on the street palivanzake. And on the street, kids will be like, no boy, sibanga zikuvuta pa nyumba, bwela cheku, no chili, like, no, they find comfort. So what makes the economy, and again, nga palinjala pa nyumba, nga palinjala pa nyumba bana bataba tetka pempeko vokuja tetka pempeko ndrama munji. And if you will look at, I'm going to concentrate more on Zambia. If you look at it ukayanganisa maningi uzapeza that our street kids, they've got maden, they are not found everywhere. Uzapeza like in Lusaka bamapezeka one bapezeka paja pa downtown mukachoka pa
Uh,
downtown because pa downtown it's a busy place and there's also a food place. Kulima eating places yambili paja, so they can easily dash into downtown bapempa bakasizo pempa baenda futi baenda pempa ndrama, so bazapempa vokudya bazapempa na ndrama bakapeza ndrama baenda bagula vokudya. And again ukaona zapezeka paja mkairo road pali ma chicken licken manandozi, that's where they will be found. Ndiye pepapezeka maningi mukachoka hapo mzawapeza pamanda hill under the bridge, so they are strategically vamankala ni strategy. And if you check in these places where I'm mentioning olokugona, it's easier. Bakachoka kudya paja bapempa ndrama bakachoka kupempa ndrama baenda bagona panspa bridge. So there's that, and where their peers, there's that love and there's that comfort, there's that which makes them. So basically at home, as parents, we have to make sure that we make the home environment as child friendly as we can. All over vuta maningi, let's make it that it will be an environment that will encourage our children to stay home.
Interesting. Himba, we can go to the next one, and I think this one is what really maybe touches me. We're talking about discrimination. Now, um, how does discrimination happen in homes?
Um, Lawrence, when we talk about discrimination among children in the house, imabwela mwambili. Mzima. I'm going I'm going to mainly concentrate on an orphan, an OVC child, orphaned or vulnerable children, or maybe mwana wa kusonga munganda. You are going to find the way you treat the children, you are trying to favor your own child. In the actual sense, you are discriminating the other child. That's one. Two, the language you used, the way you communicate to these children. What kind of language do you use? How do you speak to these children? Imechoka hapa, after all chuoni ni kuipa. That child is being discriminated, and again that child is the sense of belonging, they are losing it, so they feel they are not part of that family. Mukagula vovala benangu mwabagulila, it's very difficult to have dependent children in the house, especially orphaned children. If there's a very, very difficult child to look after in the house, Rollins, it's a dependent child, especially who is an orphaned. Ndababeve, especially my orphaned, I'm sorry to say, but I'll say the way it is. They feel entitled to anything because they lost parents. They never understand that I'm in this house, these people are just doing me a favor. They feel I'm entitled because I lost my parents. And if a guardian doesn't handle that situation properly, they end up making those children to feel unwanted, to feel discriminated. And at the end of the day, ngani wakazi tukambofika kuma 15, 16, or even kutali wena nguma 10, bambopeze kama ba. because vapeza kulika sense of belonging, vakachoka mumaba vaenda mumastreets because they are finding sense of. So this, it's really a very, very cardinal issue in the homes. Issue of looking after orphans, it borders on both the guardian and the dependent. And they should be a lot, both actually, they need support mentally and physically, psychologically, and spiritually. The moment you just you say at twala senda fefin, because you know you're going to find that even the same word I'm using, ndio choipa, you're going to use it to your own child. Your own child to just mamina imolafa, but an orphan maniuza so because bamai banamwalila. You get the situation, and they'll say even mukachitako, if you go to extreme, the orphan inobani tumakusukambale mwana wa wankala. It's a very, and they feel discriminated. So it's really a very sensitive situation to handle as a guardian, as a caretaker, as a carer of this child. You really have to be sensitive. And most of the times, vana, if they just lose a sense of belonging, they feel discriminated, they feel unwanted. The easiest place they go to or they find refuge is the street. I don't know how easier it is. Vamatamangila pa street, especially vamuna, vakazi ni kuhule. Vamuna ni pa street.
Probably we can look at it as even prostitution is done on the streets. So probably maybe can take it as the same thing. But is there a way of mentally preparing these orphans and vulnerable children before they are moved into a house where they'll be kept? To say things might not be as you expect, things are like this. Is there a way, or is it not done enough?
You know, when you talk about preparing the children, especially the orphaned and the vulnerable children, Lawrence, it's a process, and it's not a thing that could be done in a twinkle of an eye. If anything, especially in a situation where parents are terminally ill, actually counseling should start there. Because inga munyumba mliba, this parent who is terminally ill and their kids there, already the situation yambochinja mnyumba moja. The parents will not look after these children as they could if they are on their feet. You see, and already the children psychologically they start being affected. So basically, to prepare the orphans or the vulnerable children, it starts patali. So it needs the family, and the problem is, I think in our country, we've not really come to appreciate to understand the grief and loss in children. Very few have come to understand the impact of grief and loss in children and the effects, such that we, ukaone if this parent abadwala, my parents badwala panyo bana chokako yo bamai bako badwala chokako. In actual sense, the children should be able to be told, your mother is not feeling too well, your father is not, as they are deteriorating. The children needs to be told, kapena bamai banu, the mother may be well. And at this point, you don't need to lie. You don't even need to bring in God. Mulungu, baenda kuli mulungu, in a case where the mother has passed on or the father has, banaenda kuli mulungu. You need to be honest with the children. You need to give them the right information they need with the right words. So you basically have to start from there. Even during the funeral procession, these children should be involved. But in our culture, we have a tendency where we are going to get this child. Mwamchosapo ntau ya malilo. Abana bachokepo, they don't even understand. You don't allow these children to mourn. They feel the same pain which the parents feel, the elderly feel. They also go through the same grief we go through. They also mourn, and they need to be encouraged. But most of the times, according to our culture and tradition, we've developed a tendency where we want children to abort their mourning, their pain, and at the end of the day, imabwelela futhi ikabwela ndiye manje bambo looking for love in the street.
And that is very common with actually the boy child who will be
Yeah.
told, kosa ndio mamuna sufuni kodira.
Exactly, and it ends up affecting children in a negative way. So basically, to help these children, if nikoyamba olopanya my parents pay fela makolo, you have to, your parents is gone, mom and dad will not come back. they've gone nga baenda kangani language bwanji, but you don't even need to say no, God has taken them, because these children, they will grow to hate God. If God loves me, why would he take away my parents? If God loves me, why will he take away my mother? So at that point, they've got a lot of unanswered questions which needs to be answered by either their carer, is it their caregiver, whoever. There should be somebody or a counselor to carry these children to go through that process. And in the time yakasila in umuziba, you got to live with your uncle, and your situation will not be the same. Munyumba muli ba uncle bebanzo mpasani ba mami banu banko banu sibanga kwanise. But it all has to do with the mental counseling. You need to do the counseling for children throughout, so that they come to understand. They go through the grief. They go through the, people would say, ni bana aba. You know that children, they mourn. They go through the same pain we go through. But one thing we have to understand, bana, they take time to finish their mourning. We mourn different. Imwe malilo yakasila vonze muganza tu mwana chikonko chinasila kansi chikaliko. So you need to carry them through until they understand what death is all about, how the situation has changed into their lives, and how they need to be responsible of their lives, so that they move on. Nga mwabaleka bana while they are still mourning, then you mwabapereka mnyumba mwinangu. They don't, and many times children don't even understand why they are all over mbafa makolo. And then even the division, mwampereka kuli banti bake, mwampereka kuli bambuye bako, even that, it affects children negatively. So all those things, children needs to be talked to. At the end of the day, they will go somewhere, kuli bamaye baswenzo sukambale, mwapereka kuli banko basukambale. Mwana zata banivutisa. Meanwhile, those are survival skills they are giving this child. Thank you so much, Lawrence.
Okay, let's look at the next one. And this one, I think, is something that is quite serious. We are talking about abuse, which comes sexually, physically, and emotionally. Now, how do these things happen in a home where there are children? Or how do adults allow these things to happen? Himba, are you with me? Okay, seems to
Yes,
have.
sir. Yes, sir. Yes, Lawrence, I'm here. Yeah. When you're talking about sexual abuse, physical abuse, and emotional abuse, Lawrence, this is a very critical thing in our homes or in our communities. Sexual abuse, it's very common, but timabisa mumanyumba, you know that. Uzapeza mwana bamuchita abuse sexually, and kubakazi it's even better. Mwana bamuchita abuse sexually, bazaizi bankani bazaidi akilila. Waona? Eventually, this child will no longer feel safe in this house. What will they do? They will run away from their home. They will feel their home is no longer a safe place to be. Mwazi. And bakazi baliko na better, because most of the times if a girl child is being abused, many it's easily seen. Bamuna bama bachita abuse mwamene mnyumba sibaziba. And because men, you are taught to be brave, you are taught to be strong. And the moment somebody will talk about abuse, it will take time for people to understand. Eventually, the child will just run away. They are scared. They will withdraw from the community. They will not trust anybody. They will feel every elderly person they will see, they will abuse them. So this is a very serious situation which we need to be talking about, or to as my family members, people who work with these children, the youth workers, needs to raise my red flag. Like school, when we see such a thing, and bravo to that teacher who got that video for that child that went viral. This is what the caregivers or the youth workers should do when they see such things. You need to raise a red flag. But kambiri timajakirira yai muja mnyumba mwankala muli banko bake bazamupisha. At the end of the day, uyu mufana mwamubela ufana udu. The childhoodness will be stolen away from this child, and then this child will never be the same. This child will be traumatized for the rest of their lives. So it's even better when they are sexual abuse. These children are helped psychologically. But kambiri bana bamataba, they run away from home. baenda kwinangu where they feel they are safe or where they feel they'll be hurt. Psychologically, physical abuse, it's this one is why which is very common. Kange mwana bamenya, they give them work to do which is more than their age. At the end of the day, benangu ibashita affect in child development, physical development, mental development. The child is very it becomes, and benangu even their mental capacity is very affected. Mwana mumenya every day pa nyumba azataba we bana baenda bazipeza, they end up thinking the street is safe. But one thing, when the street is actually like jumping from a frying pan into the fire, but they feel it's more safe. And then remember that when you're abusing the child physically, you are actually teaching that child, you are, whatever you are imparting in that child's life, it will affect the community. And just know that you are raising a monster or you are raising another abuser who would think that's the way they live. These are children who grow up to be even abusers in their relationship. They end up being bad managers of relationships. They end up being bad managers of communication. They just, and they are bully. They become bully. They don't trust anybody around them. So when you're abusing a child, just know that this is what I'm contributing to society. Emotional abuse is the name calling of a child. It's the insults you call the child. It's the harsh language you use to the child. You know, mwana, you are calling this, mwana aluvanyako cheka ngono, chioneni chikuipa, chioneni tsinena chitachani, as if you are even handsome or beautiful. Meanwhile, you are even worse than that child. You are saying kuipa. You know, so basically, this child is traumatized emotionally, and even bankala affected. They lose self-esteem, they lose who they are, they lose their identity, they lose the sense of belonging to a family. They end up not having trust. As I said, they'll never trust anybody. You know, bakaona mkulu baona chechi ni cha abuser cha bwela. You know, so basically, this is how, as households or the community, we are contributing to these children who are on the street. Aba bana balinangu kubakonga, aba bali pa street bana kubakonka bwino bwino, muzapeza tukwe bachoka che ku manyumba. It's very very dignified homes, but maybe kuliche mmoza ama mshita abuse mwana, but because as a family we've decided to protect an abuser at the expense of the child, mwalengesa mwana aenda pa street, uyakonda mmaba, huyo ni ule. You've not sat down to find out what has caused this child to go on the street. You know, mwana emotionally ku school, the child performance, it becomes bad. And such children, when they grow up, they end up to be dangerous. Very few children are able to fight these situations when they are young. But these are scars which somebody has to live with for the rest of their lives, Lawrence.
Interesting. Uh, at this point in time, I think one of the reasons that while researching over this topic came through was that of rejection, which is the next one. But I think this one comes in many forms, Himba. Uh, really, this one actually made me think a lot, Himba. How do you explain this one?
Lawrence, as you said, rejection comes in many forms. Nikwambiri kwebwelela rejection, you know. As I said, remember, everyone wants a sense of belonging. We all want identity. You know, you all want somewhere where you be identified with. Oh, Lawrence kwa kwa so alinaba. We all want that sense of belonging. But there are many ways we are rejected. You know, many ways we are rejected, and there are many reasons. We also have to find out why are people rejected. And such children who are rejected, you know, it's a sad situation, and it's something that really we have to be careful as elderly, as guardian, as care providers, as caregivers, as people who work with children. You know, there are many reasons why children are being rejected. And even sometimes you're going to find the guardian, they don't even know that I'm actually sending a message of rejection to this child. How do we reject? One is the way we call these children. How do we address them? Huh? Vena nguma kamba no kamba. Iwe, you know, there are little things, the comments we make. You don't know how much the message you're sending to this person. You know, there's one woman I know, one day was giving an introduction, you know, over the kids. Ati, baja uja ni mzukulu wanga penze tubana tusobera. They were the grandchildren to her, who are the children to her daughter, and other two children who were the grandchildren to her sisters who are late. And then she was giving an introduction. Tuja tubiri tuja ni tubazukulu twanga tubiri. Then kaja ke kasobera kaja nikamzukulu kamfana wanga. Kaja nikamzukulu. Already in that message, Rollins, there's already a message of rejection, and there's already a message of detachment to this child, you know. And then
I once a number of years ago came across a woman who was talking about her grandson who was born from an Indian, a Chinese father, sorry, and she seemed not to be so impressed about it and seemed not to really accept that, and especially so that the father to the child had actually even abandoned the mother and the child altogether. So I could see the sense of rejection in her eyes. Or even in her language as she was talking about her grandchild. And now this is where the children seem to have to lose their kind of identity and maybe just not know where to identify themselves or how to identify themselves with. CJ, I will come you back to this discussion. Welcome back. Hope your internet is better this time around. CJ, can are you with us? Okay, seemingly CJ is having quite some issues with the internet, but that doesn't stop us. We can look at the next slide, my producer. Let's look at another reason for children going on the street. Now, the next reason actually has to do with mental issues. Sometimes these children are not okay mentally, and instead of us looking for to get some medical attention, we actually look at them. Maybe they are just all that. And also, we can look at some of the reasons that we can have whereby they are just optional children. Now, the moment I introduce to some of the substances, it becomes a little bit of a problem. Himba, are you back with us?
yes, Lawrence, I am.
According to Jamanet, we are looking at substance abuse when it comes to the reasons why children opt to. Now, how often does it happen here? That's a question that would maybe beg an answer.
Come again, Lawrence. You were cutting. I didn't get you.
Okay, at what stage does it happen? Because we know that sometimes children get introduced to some of that. At what stage because of them?
We can't really. Basically, I think I don't want to mislead people to mention the stage, Rollins. But all I would say, every child is very vulnerable to substance abuse. And when I say a child, I'm talking about a person who is below the age of 18. And just to give the description of this person I'm talking about, is a person who is still physically, emotionally, spiritually, socially, intellectually still growing. You know, the person who is still growing in all those, if we look at the will of a child, they are still growing in that will of a child. You see what I mean? So when I say I'm talking about a child, I'm talking about somebody who've not yet fully grown to make their own independent decisions. Such a person is vulnerable to any kind of substance abuse. And most of our young people, they abuse substance. Some they do it willingly, some they don't do it willingly. They've got their many reasons. Vambili, they find sense of belonging. You know, ukachitako ka weed or whatever substance you're going to use. Bazamvira kuti ndine muntu manje na courage yabwela. You know how people behave. So a child would go for that just for them to have that. They would
Yeah,
do that because they want to, if they feel their image is poor and people say, okay, let me say low self-esteem. So they want to feel like I want to have this, my self-esteem and I should be courageous. The children will go for substance abuse. A child will also go for substance abuse because of peer pressure. They just banzake che bamui boy tie boy chan chan, they will go for it. Some because they want to belong to a group, to a peer group. You see, so the peer
exactly.
group they want to belong to is that banzake won't say bema nanga eve to be part of that group. What do they need to do? They need to smoke so that they need, or whatever substance they need, balls, nichan, whatever they use, that child has to start using it so that they belong to that group. And sometimes it's because of parental rejection, as we are saying. Parental rejection. The parents, we've already talked about rejection, where the child is being rejected. They are going to use these substances, whatever which they feel, they are going to feel that nine intine muntu. Sometimes if they have over controlling parents, Bana, they will use substance in the sense that they will be able to defend themselves from whatever the world will come up with. So Benang, it's also they use it as a survival skill. Well, like muma streets. By using like if you go kurusaka like kabos kaja, bakambatinka blankets. Bakaka sebenzesa kabakola anga gone mu street even without any cover. Kange sanza vela pepo. So they use substance. There are many reasons. But what happens? Some it's also the effects of coming from broken homes where there are divorces. Vana they'll start because bakafika kunyumba watate wake na mai wake bashautana, there's no peace in that house. What do? They end up start using substances because substances, they're going to find themselves among peers who are using these substances. They will join as well. And then because of the hostile again, if you look at all these reasons, they are actually yange nana, you know what I mean? They are
Yeah.
kulipe yange nana. So literally the source, it all comes from home, the environment where they are. Is it a child-friendly environment? Is it a home where a child will be very happy to say kwatu, nina kunyumba kwatu, where a child will be rushing to go after school? Is that environment you've created at home? The child will be very proudly to say, oh, that's my family, that's where I belong. Or it's a place where munapanga mwana wata kanza chati, kunyumba kuli bantihimba, kunyumba kuja, maybe agaza nkanda bantihimba, kapena nikafika bazambo nisoberesa ku kazi o bazambo nisoberesa ku muna bazani itana mazina bazani all that. You've created that environment for the child, and the child will end up using substances so that they get away from this ghost around them. Thank you so much, Lola.
Now, Himba, many reasons why streets and leave their homes. A lot of reasons. But questions that beg. One of them is: are we handling this issue well as a country?
Personally, I would say we are trying, but if you look at it from our country, specifically Zambia, I think these are issues that we've not really paid attention to. The issue of young people in our society. And even when you look at people who work with these young people, even my organization we have, these are not even qualified people. Most of them, they are not even qualified. Most of them, they are not, they just call themselves, no, in child care, no, I'm a youth worker, muntu mkamchecking, you even check their kumbuyo na criminal records. Even the issues of abuse, they have them. So basically, we are trying. The government is doing their best. They are putting in policies, but we are still very far. Most of the children are being abused. Most of children are actually going through a very hostile environment out there. So this is where we need Ndaba, even our culture has a bigger role to play in these situations where, but don't come in, these are family matters. Uzapeza ati na makolo bamene bebasunga mwana we. They need help. But they will say, don't come in. But we need to have situations where we are going to start having family friendly, facilities where you've got, is it a social worker? Is it a carer? Is it whoever, or a psychologist who's working with this family, where you're going to look at family ties, family values, culture, the person who's going to know how we are going to tie these things. I think the government should just even come up with a course or a training in schools, specifically just people to work with young people. Is it youth work? If you come back here, any teacher at no is a youth worker, but they should be in when we look at in the psychological part. I think we need to do more as a government, and we need to do more as a country, because a lot of young people, they need psychological support out there in our communities.
Here we also have quite a number of NGOs that have come, mostly saying that it's to do with many of them have taken part in this or in that. We see the situations, and also we have line ministries that to take this up. We can say the ministry or these ministries see much happening.
Lawrence, you were cutting. I didn't get you clearly.
Okay, I was saying, seem to have quite a number of organizations looking after children. They are looking at the interest, but more we seem to have this. The number is the number of street kids is becoming. What really is wrong? What really is happening? Also, line ministries like the Ministry of Youth, the Ministry of Community Development, where are they standing on this? Why are we not seeing so much action on this?
Thank you so much, Roland. Roland, we have the line ministries, which is Ministry of Social Welfare. We also have the Ministry of Youth Sports. Okay, these, as I was saying, Vingenana, even in the ministries, Vingenana, kuli Ministry of Education, Youth, kuli Social Welfare, and other institution. But I'm sure they are trying their best. But Uziba, Vantuba, we are having a bigger challenge. And if you look at the population of Zambia, the majority are young people. The majority of the population of Zambia, they are young people, which means there are a lot of things that we need to look into. There's a budget allocation for these activities, which I strongly feel the government is really doing their best. But the NGO, I have an issue with the NGOs. Benang my NGOs, bafuna che funding. Sorry to say, Sibons, there are other NGOs that are really doing a very tremendous job, and they are doing the best. But kunkala che, even abantu abalani ama NGOs mukamukonka mwamufunza uti iwe, what information do you have about this NGO you are running? Bazaku sachitana understand. Even when you talk about the youths, the young people, they don't even know the definition or the difference, the definition of a youth, even the definition of a young person. They don't know even the difference between a youth worker and a youth. They don't understand. So some of these NGOs, ni pesa che funding, but at the expense of the young people. And literally, all I would say is, let us join hands. Let us not leave it to the government. The churches are doing a great job. And as I said, not all the organization or NGOs are most of them are doing a great job. Most are doing really a great job. But me, I would want to see where we are going to have a bigger number of youth workers, social workers, and now coming from a background of COVID has also left a lot of scars behind. A lot of young people or children, they are injured, venangu makolo banafa without kubaona mwe banafela quickly. COVID has its own issues. So we need a lot of social workers in our country who are going to work with young people, with the society to help. We need a lot of qualified people who are going to work in these fields to really, really help the government, to really help other NGOs that are doing a great job. And also, I think there should also strict measures that should put in place for somebody to run, especially a children's NGO, to deal with young people. There should be a lot of measures. Bafunika uyu muntu bamuchekinga, ingani kumuchekinga, does he have a criminal record? Does this person have the required papers? Does this person have the qualification or the experience needed? Does this person read even their mental health? Is it okay? Because benangu bantu kamona we asebenza nabana wamuyangana. Can we trust this person with the life of children? But one thing we should understand is that whoever is working with children, you are basically trusting them with the lives of a child. I'll keep on giving an example of that video of that teacher who got that the video who is a 4-year-old child who was being abused by the stepmother. That's exactly what a person who is working with young people should be able to do, or who is working with children. They should be able to identify such things, and their main interest should be the welfare of a child or the young person they are working with. That is their main interest. The rest are secondary. But what is the well-being of this child? Are they okay psychologically? Are they okay physically? Are they okay mentally? How is the child relating with a friend? How is their social interaction? We should be able, not bamene ngani ba youth worker ngani ba social worker ndio paja panyumba pavuto yenda paja. Uzapeza some of these even working with young people are they even the abusers of these children. The government is doing a tremendous job. They are putting measures in place, but these measures, they need people to implement them on the ground. So I think that's the angle which we should come in.
Okay. Himba, we can also ask, how do they survive? I think it's a question that not to pay attention to. Sometimes I think about it and worry, especially in the cold season. How when me who is indoors is feeling that coldness, I start to wonder what is happening with that child who has got no home to stay in. Okay, seemingly Himba is not with us.
Lawrence, pastrate in povuta. Ni survival of the fittest. That's why if somebody or a child who's been on the street, even the way you handle them, you have to be careful. Especially mwanamkazi. Mwanamkazi mkampeza pa street, this child, you really have to be careful with the way you handle this child. Because bakazi bambili, if life is hard, vana, prostitution is the easiest alternative they will go to. But mwana akaenda mu street mukazi, mwisho atefe apitamo mwana fingi. If anything you're dealing with this child, you have to be careful. You may even be dealing with 12 personality in this child. When mukashita manage kwa salai, so you really have to be careful. And that's why people say, they are very dangerous. They are very dangerous in a way that they've been through a lot. If they've done anything, their conscience is gone. So to bring back these children, and for somebody to survive on the street, you alone and kukuika pa street che 1 hour to survive you tipeza milomo ilimbu apape ulili. But those kids, they manage to, those are survivors. It's not easy to survive on the street. Ngani wakazi baba repinga, bamenyana, a lot happens on the street, but this child still survive. And for me, a child who survives on the street, nima pasa ulem. Nivambi very much tika. It's not easy to survive on the street. Kukabwela mpepo bana, if it has even bave badi mu street che. So literally, bali hapa leo, this time they are at such a place, according even to weather. And one thing you should know, Wanama commanders were not really, I wouldn't call them commanders. They've got guardian who look after them. Mwamene
Mhm.
baja bakulu bakulu, they end up being their parents, they end up being, but a lot happens on the street for these kids. A lot happens. Let's make sure that we love them. Let's not call them, let us not call them names when we see them. Just put yourself in their shoes and you don't know why they're on the street.
Yeah. Him, um, the program was actually aimed laying the foundation. Hope is that next week we should have someone from the streets and try to highlight for us how exactly they live and how at least it is to be on the street. So hopefully we hope that next week we should be able to have someone like I said earlier on, and we should be able to ask all these questions and hear it from the horse's mouth. We are talking about real life issues here on Ubuntu Lifestyle and things that really happen on the streets. Imba, I'll give you a minute to just give your closing remarks and probably something to do with street kids.
Thank you so much, Rollins. And all I would love to say is that let us understand these children on the street. Let us accommodate them with caution. These children, it's not every child who is on the street who wished to be on the street. You don't know what they've been through, and you don't know who they will be tomorrow. Sometimes let's just have time to talk to them. Let's find out what they are going. We've got people who've been on the street and they are doing very well right now. We've got people who've been on the street and they've failed to pull through in life. When now they've failed to pull in life not because they are weaker, but kumankala che Lawrence lelo you lost your mother babwela bakutenga, you lost your mother and father bakupereka kuli basista baba mai bako, basista baba mai bako na beve bafa ukali kuti you heal from this pain again. This hits you, maybe wankala na mimba, it's a very painful situation. And we call it, this child has been hit twice, has been hit thrice. So such children, if you are able to give them a stepping stone, please give them a stepping stone. If you are able to give them a back, is it a pillar for them to lean upon, give them. Let us not call them names. Still, street. Tomorrow it may be your child. But as we are taking care of these children on the street, let us all know that I'm also contributing to the national development. If it catches someone almost per street, per 6, that's a great, and they develop strong bond among themselves. So mukachosapo almost kuti mumuchose mumukwanise. Believe me, you have to count it all joy, and it should be a soul found. Vana vevalengesa kwenda, and it's you and me, Lawrence, who makes these children to be on the street. It's our doings. We abuse these children sexually, physically, emotionally. We abuse them from all angles. At the end of the day, the children, they find refuge on the street. So let's look at ourselves. Let's do the personal reality. We see how we've contributed and negatively to this situation, and how we can contribute positively to support the government at large, and also to build the better Zambia for everyone to live in. Thank you so much, Lawrence.
Okay, there you have it. This has been an Ubuntu presentation where we are looking at street kids in Zambia. We hope that even next week you join us as we go into the nitty-gritties and details of this particular subject. Remember, Ubuntu channel is live every day of the week, and tomorrow, please be sure to join the politicians as they come and talk politics tomorrow at 20 hours. Then on Thursday, you can meet your leaders, and we don't know which leader is coming through, but hey, join Lance and Chaza as they do just that. And Thursday, we have Evangelist Shavula coming to share with us how to live on Pansaka. Then Friday, Ruben comes through with the boys as they talk about sports and local sports for that matter. Then on Saturday, we have we have Chaza coming back again with My Point of View, a program which allows you to share what you think on the stories that make the headlines throughout the week. And of course, that is before we have a moment of grace with Namwinga on Sunday. Everything 20 hours. That's Ubuntu channel for you. Ubuntu is always live. And at this point in time, it's good night and pleasant viewing.